are back with Brunch, a taste of Tobago. And guys, I am so honored and so pleased that you stayed with us. Thank you so much again for inviting me into your homes. I want to say a blessed morning to my technical crew. Good morning to Aaron Primus. Good morning to Jared Bernard, and of course, our producer, Mr. Anton Parks. Good morning to you. And you are viewing Brunch, a Taste of Tobago. And this is one of those times where I feel like, I am in a presence of such royalty. I cannot even begin to describe how many things, how many projects my next guest has been involved in. Trinidadian Canadian actor, musician, playwright, director, and educator, and appeared in over 64 films such as Covert One, The Hades Factor, National Lampoon Senior Trip, and of course Testes. And the upcoming, get this, Reacher. Now, you guys should know this film, Reacher. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a wonderful drama. And of course, I get to speak to one of our sons of the soil who is doing so much in that space. So I want to say good morning to Marvin Ishmael. Good morning, good
Good,
morning, good
good morning.
morning.
Good morning to you.
Oh my gosh, I feel so elated right now because I love the fact that we get to represent and represent well, represent ourselves. I would have spoken on your identity as such a blueprint when you are in a larger country, when you travel, when you're not in the comfort of your island or your home. And the amount of projects that you undertook, the pathways that you opened, and that never ending energy, that rhythm, that Trinbagonian rhythm that you have speaks so much to your accomplishments thus far. But I just want to welcome you once again to Brunch. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Janelle, and thank you for having me on your show. It's quite a privilege to be on. I love Tobago. I love the people, and of course, I love our culture and what we as Trinbagonians have brought to the entertainment field all across the world, wherever we find ourselves. We've also shared our culture, our language, our stories, and our ability to let the other mainstream cultures or peoples know of what we have contributed as a people and what we are still contributing on a daily, monthly, yearly basis to life.
And one of the things that stands out about you, Melvin, you have so many layers, and it's like a non-stop evolution that we see changing before us. So you wrote so many plays, 16 nominated. Let's talk about that. The two nominations that you have for your plays. Let's start there, and then we're going to
Yep.
get into just a bit about your education, because I know you teach, you mentor, you do so much. If I had to speak on all the things that you do, I would be here all day. So right now, I'm trying to syn up as best as I can and just let the viewers in to as much about you as possible. So tell us about your play that got the two nominations. Just tell us about those, please.
Okay. Well, thank you. In 1987, I founded a theater company called We Are One Theater Productions. And our aim was to present the work of Caribbean writers, to present our stories, our heroes within the school system, within the main stage audiences, and also to present a platform for some of our senior artists within the calypso dance roots area. And to that end, I realized that there weren't many plays that were available to tour the schools into that told our stories. And therefore, I did some research and decided to write a number of plays that I thought would best look at our culture and our contributions. And so I wrote one about Cujo, the Jamaican folk hero,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the first one. It was called Forever Free, and it won a Chalmers Award for Best New Play for Theatre for Young Audiences, and was nominated for a Dora May for More Award. I also looked at the contributions that we made in other islands, and so when we looked at, for example, the Three Musketeers, and you look at that film, you never see a person of color. And yet, within that time in France, there were many people of color who were in the court. And in fact, one of the main generals was a person of color. And so I looked at a play called My Father, My Hero, which dealt with Dumas, Alexander Dumas, who was a person of color, and
Mm-hmm.
what he represented to the Caribbean and to us. And so for me, it was a need to tell stories and to show the wider student population that sometimes we look at history, and history is normally, of course, given from the point of view of those in power, those who thought they won, and sometimes they miss out large aspects of the true history, our true story. And so that's how those things came into being. I mean, I also wrote something called A Cat and a Dog, which I thought epitomizes us as a people in a perfect light, because it looked at the immigrant perspective from the point of view of animals. And so our children were able to identify with cats and dogs and blue jays and chipmunks, and look at how we look at those animals from their perspective, but also gain an insight into how we as immigrants have contributed to our society, and how racism or prejudices come about, because sometimes our parents tell us certain things that are wrong, but because we've heard it and we've we say it so many times that it becomes a part of our DNA, and so we don't look at, is that true? And A Cat and a Dog, of course, had music by Ian Jones, who is from Trinidad and Tobago. He's a pan pioneer here in Ontario, and he did a number of songs that sort of escapulated us as a people in terms of the movement of music. So again, when I write plays, I try to tell our stories. I also try to share various aspects of our culture, be it calypso, be it gospel calypso, be it jazz, be it reggae, to show that we have shared so many things to this wider community. And that's how those plays came into being, out of a necessity to find heroes and to find stories that our children could identify with. I remember one of the first times that Forever Free was shown in the schools. And we were playing to grade 13s, which were, like the upper form sixes, I guess, in Trinidad. And we had some huge black people of color in the back part of the auditorium. And they ran down to the front because it was the first time they had seen such. My lead was 6'5". He was about 200 pounds of ripping muscle. He had played
Mm-hmm.
basketball, but he was
Yes.
also a performer. And they had never seen a person of color with that image dancing an original African dance. And for the first time, they felt proud of who they were, where they came from, what we have contributed to society, and they felt proud to come down to the front and let the rest of the student body know that, hey, that's my story. And so that's how
Yes.
those plays came into being. It was out of a necessity to share to a wider audience our heroes and our stories.
And I love the fact that you were willing to take that step and really change the face of what an actor is, what an artist is, who is that person that gives various forms of expression and creativity. I had a friend once tell me, without creatives, our world is very, very bleak. It's very gray. There's no color. There's no life. There's no spice. And so, being a creative all its own is something that speaks to so many persons. But for a very long time, we were not represented as people of color. And so this narrative had to change. Somebody had to do it. And it just so happened that one of those persons was you. And trailblazers and pioneers, those are the words that come to mind when I describe you, even if you may or may not see yourself as those names that I just gave you. But that is what I think of. I think of a pioneer. I think of a trailblazer, someone who wants to move away from the norm, destroy that box immediately, without reason or without question or pause. And these are the types of stories that we want to highlight. So I'm so glad that you're here with me today so that we can really delve in. Now, we were talking earlier, one of my previous guests, we were talking about your identity. And it becomes so important to know who you are. It becomes so important to take pride in who you are and know your story, know your history. Remember to merge the wisdom of the elders, but also couple it with innovation and the energy of the young. Which brings me to my next point, Reacher. How did this come about? Because this is one of those dramas based on a novel by Mr. Lee Childs. And I love the fact that I get to see you put your rhythm into it, because we have a rhythm, right? We have a rhythm as Trinbagonian people, as Caribbean people, as people of color. We share that rhythm,
Well,
right? So we have a
thank you.
clip of
Okay.
Reacher. So we're just going to show a little bit of that. We're so excited. So everyone is like waiting with bated breath to see what's going to happen. But how did this come about, you being involved in the
Um,
series?
well, they had auditions for this particular part, and I think they wanted to make small town America a little accessible or a little more accessible. So they were looking for a person of color to play the priest. And I decided when I auditioned that I would just do it with my own rhythms and accents and
Mm-hmm.
see what happens. And
Yes.
it worked.
And we have Reacher on the screen right now. And one of the things that really stands out, you definitely have a posture. And it's really hard to believe that you're not a priest in real life, because your posture speaks so much to the character that you're playing. And that again is our Trinbagonian rhythm that we have. And I see you playing, this character with Alan Richson, and Alan Richson is uh, a genius all his own in film and television. And being able to be a part of such an event, such a this course of history, it's such a wonderful, beautiful thing. Just tell us a bit about the story of Reacher. Now, if you guys don't know, this is something that you definitely want to watch. Just tell us a bit about the storyline there. Now, you play a priest in a small
Yes.
community,
In a small community
and
that is plagued with drugs and all the problems that drug dealers bring to any society. And so Alan is Jack Reacher comes in. Now, first of all, I have to say that Alan is such a wonderful person. We had although it was just two scenes that I had with him, we had a lot of time to sort of sit and talk just about acting, his sort of career, what he was up to before he got Jack Reacher. He was on the Immortals, and then his character got cancelled,
mm-hmm,
and his state of sort of despair when that happened. But then doors always open, and so he got Jack Reacher, and he's a huge guy. He's 6'5", just 250 pounds of just muscle, but
yes,
he's a very open, generous individual. And I told him, I said, when I look at your character, what I think of is Michael, the archangel, because we were just talking about reasons or rationales why these characters uh, are present within our society. And so he looked at me sort of quizzically to say, the archangel? I say, yes, you are almost within our storyline, God's hand on earth, sort of dealing with the unrighteous in a way that many of us would like to think we can deal with, but we don't. And he kind of looked at me and go, yeah, that's really interesting. Hand of God. "Oh, I see, I see." But he brings about justice within our society, as most heroes do. And which which leads me to another point in terms of our viewership, in that we all have the potential to be heroes. And what I mean by that is that standing up for what is right, not being afraid of who we are as a people, not being afraid of sharing our stories, of not being afraid of seeing the potential in others, and therefore being more generous of spirit, generous as a people to one another, and realizing that some of the ills of society is because we haven't been as generous, we haven't been as open in terms of realizing and meeting the needs of those around us, because we are so content with where we are or who we are individually or within certain sort of segments of our society. And that sort of kind of opened up my eyes in terms of saying, how can you, as an artist, as an individual, help to inspire others in realizing their dreams, in realizing their potential? And therefore, it gives you a little more clarity and force of perspective in terms of what you want to do, what you need to do, and what you can do to help others.
I love the fact you just ended by saying what you can do to help others. And it's so important to be able to give, be able to contribute, be able to be a source of knowledge and understanding, being able to tell our story, being able to merge, as I said, wisdom and innovation. And I get so much of that from you because, I mean, you're theater guy to the max. And it speaks so well to the journey because you're able to embody these characters. You're able to be, someone that we're seeing on screen and we are feeling that this is you and not remembering that you're just playing a role or remembering that, okay, this is a character that this man is playing. And that speaks to our essence, that speaks to our rhythm because you would have done theater for so long. What are some of the groups that you worked with? Because I know you worked with so many groups. I know you taught at so many institutions. Let's just delve in, just really
Okay.
quickly as to some of those places that you would have
Okay.
worked.
Well, Janelle, in fact, one of the highlights, or a couple of highlights, I had the privilege of being on Broadway in 2004 with A.R. Rahman's Bombay Dreams. It was an Andrew Lloyd Webber production. And as you know, the dream of most stage actors is to be on Broadway at least once and to be in a show that represented us as collectively as people of color. And so that for me was an amazing process because it made me realize that the process I had as a performer worked, because we performed the play every night, 8 shows a week for over a year. And so you had to hit all the marks. You had to be emotionally involved, physically involved, the same, because the people who came to see your show expected that of you. So that was one of the highlights. The other highlight was teaching at UTT's Academy for the Performing Arts. So from 2014 to 2021, I was an assistant professor there teaching. And one of the highlights, I think, of my career is introducing to the Academy, to our student body, the thrust stage, and non-traditional settings. You know, over the in the history of theater in Trinidad, we've had many voices who've said that the proscenium stage doesn't actually speak to us as a people, because most of our art forms, in terms of the festivals that we celebrate, happen outside, and therefore we should be thinking more of arena stage, non-traditional settings for some of our plays, and I was able to bring that into focus while I was there at the academy, in terms of getting some of our young directors to work presenting plays at the botanical gardens, at a art gallery, somebody's house, where you only can, you might only need 30 or 40 people to come and see a show, because you wanted to work things out as a director in terms of what's my creative impulse, what is it I want to say to today's society when I do a play. So it's not just another production of, it's what can I say to Trinidad and Tobago if I have to do the rose slip again, or moon on a rainbow shawl, or any one of our classics. What is it I want to say today that is still relevant when the writer was writing when he first produced that? So teaching at the academy for me was a highlight, because I am impressed with the talent that we have in Trinidad. I'm impressed, and Tobago, I use that word, Trinidad and Tobago. I'm impressed with the talent, and I understand that process is so important for them to understand who they are, what that journey is in terms of reading a play, taking the first lines from that play, and then finding a process to bring that character to life. And I've worked at Can Stage in Toronto. I've worked at the Ottawa, the National Arts Centre. I mean, I've been fortunate over the years to do a lot of Shakespeare. I did a map of the world, which had a character that is based on one of our writers from the Caribbean, Nightfall. And it was a joy to be able to play him, because he was written by David Hare. So it was a great writer who wrote an amazing play. It was one of the first times in Toronto that the lead of a play was a person of color, like that. And it was a huge hit. We got the opportunity to mount it a number of times here. And so those things sort of stand out for me. But I have to say one thing before I go any further, is that any success that I've had has come from the doors that were opened by people before me. And so I pay tribute to people like Vera Kajo, who started Black Theatre Canada, and others from Black Theatre Workshop, Theatre Fountainhead. So we are always working on the footprints that somebody else sort of went before us. And so I pay tribute to them. I pay tribute to the efforts that they made to ensure that our stories were being told, are being told. And what I did was to further that advancement, in terms, Jeff Henry is someone whose name sort of springs to mind when I think of pioneers. And it's so fortunate that a lot of these pioneers of theater come from Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
And that brings a sort of a joy to me, and it should bring a joy to our audiences, in that
And
everywhere we go.
we just want to say that I'm going to just put it on in there, because I love the fact that you just mentioned that so many of our pioneers come from this wonderful twin island republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and the efforts are so immense, the talents are so immense, and it's good to have that forum or that platform where we represent ourselves, and we represent well, and we represent seeing persons that look like you and I, because it's so important to have this especially in our societies today, in our worlds today. And, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of Brunch. You guys look out for Reacher season 2, Amazon Prime. Look out for Trini Ishmael, as they call him, but Marvin Ishmael, accomplished actor, playwright, musician, you name it, he has done it. Look out for Reacher season 2. And, we just want to say that we are so proud of you. Blessings to you, success to you in whatever you endeavor to do, from our family to yours. So we say thank you, and thank you for representing and representing well. So thank you so much for being a part of Brunch.
Thank you so much, Janelle. And look out for No Boundaries, the movie, which starts shooting in January.
Definitely. Will do. Will do. So, guys, we're going to wrap right here. We're going to take just a brief look at a scene from Reacher. And before we do that, our trivia question for today, let me just mention it one more time. In what village in Tobago would you find Barbados Bay? Of course, the answer at the end of the show. We're going to take a break. We're going to leave you with a clip from the series Reacher. You guys are going to be right back.
Excuse me. I was wondering if I could ask for some help.
Well, that is what we give here.
I'm looking for my cousin. He has a really bad drug problem, and a family friend said they saw him living on the street around here.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you. I promised my aunt I wouldn't come back home without her son. I don't know where to even begin looking. And I thought maybe the church has a support group or something, and through that, maybe you'd have some idea where Jimmy was scoring.
The devil did his best work when he created that poison, didn't he?
Sure did.
Almost everyone who comes into our outreach program gets their fix from the same place. Dumont, just east of Rockaway. But you gotta have a death wish to walk in there alone, son.
I'll be fine, Father. I have righteousness on my side. For the outreach program.